Hey, good morning, Philadelphia. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show, where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. This is our 10 o'clock show, which we do every Tuesday, and we have probably one of our most incredible experts. Good morning, Angela.
I have you on retainer to say nice things like that. I love
it. Right. And I'm shocked. We get the clock.
I know. It's been like 3 weeks in a row. I know. Things have been crazy since the Roe v. Wade reversal. So I haven't gone anywhere since. It's going on a month. 6/24 it fell, and we're 7/26. So I've been in Philly this whole time without any trouble.
Angela, is there something going on in Congress about marriage?
Yeah, the Respect for Marriage Act. I didn't look today on how the vote's looking, but the Respect for Marriage Act, unprecedented in terms of it passing the House. So it is the most pro LGBT bill ever to have passed the House, with 47 Republicans signing on to it. But what a lot of people don't realize is the reason why so many Republicans voted for it is it also involves its respect for marriage on a macro level generally. So in the bill, it also includes interracial marriages. And so the Democrats were very smart with adding that to it, because for them to say no to LGBTQ marriage, they'd also have to be saying no to not respecting interracial marriages. So the Democrats tied those two together, which was very smart. So passed the House with flying colors, but there's a very, very narrow window to enactment, like for it to actually pass the Senate. 10 Republican senators would have to sign on and in order for it to pass the Senate. So I'm not necessarily hopeful that it would pass the Senate. And also just as far as what it would actually do, it's limited in scope. So the way the news is portraying it is that it would save marriage equality, but really states would still be able to ban marriage. So if you're in Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, Texas, what have you, states that wanted to ban LGBTQ marriage, same-sex marriage, would still be able to do so. They would just have to respect my marriage, given the fact that I was legally married in Pennsylvania to my wife, and then I moved to Alabama. Alabama would have to grandfather me in and respect my marriage, but they could ban it so that 9-year-old that is currently living in Alabama, when that 9-year-old is 31 and wants to get married, they would not be able to. But they could leave, go to Pennsylvania, come back, and then be recognized as married in Alabama. So that's ultimately what the Respect for Marriage Act would do. And again, it's not super hopeful that it would even pass.
Wow. Angela, you need to get in there and educate them.
Doing my best, Steve.
I know you are.
One 30-minute radio show at a time, right?
Yeah, no kidding. Well, Angela, you know what? It's really amazing. We get now about 3 to 5 emails a day of people going, I was in my car listening to the radio, turning dials, and I heard your show and I couldn't turn it off. What I'm getting is we get new listeners every week. And I know you introduce yourself every week, but would you mind doing it again for our listeners, especially our new listeners out there?
Sure. So I have been practicing law now since 2008. Can't believe it's been that long. So 2007, actually. And initially thought I was going to be an international human rights attorney. And that's really what all my experience had been at that point, working for the American Bar Association Center for Eastern European Legal Initiatives. I had been published in human trafficking, worked for the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. Really anything international. I threw myself at from a human rights perspective. So then I worked, and then I moved to Beijing and got a certificate in law and Chinese law and worked in human trafficking over there. And then moved to Tanzania and worked at the War Crimes Tribunal for the Rwandan genocide, and did that for a little over a year. And again, being French Canadian, originally we remember the Rwandan genocide like you remember Black Hawk Down ultimately in Somalia, because they happened at the same time. And so Madeleine Albright, you know, as a diplomat, you're not supposed to apologize for anything, because the International Criminal Court could actually pick you up while traveling and arrest you if you've apologized, if you've admitted culpability or in any way, you know, said you were wrong about something that you did as Secretary of State or any other diplomatic position. So you're never supposed to apologize if you've held a position like that for anything that you may have done wrong. But I've seen her speak 3 times, and the Rwandan genocide, she's been asked, you know, what are your biggest regrets, or what do you, you know, in ways, and she's flat out apologized for the Rwandan genocide because, you know, Black Hawk Down had happened. And so 8 American soldiers had died in Africa, and the continent of Africa. And, you know, she just knew that Americans would not take well to losing more Americans, you know, in a place, you know, the continent of Africa. So their response was very, very little at the beginning of that uprising. And so ultimately, in 100 days, over 1 million people were slaughtered. And there's really been nothing like it as far as the genocide goes. You know, not to compare genocides and say one is worse than the other, but you look at the Holocaust and 4 million, you know, people over the course of 4 years, however many years, 1 million people in 100 days proportionately. And, you know, there were no gas chambers where you could put, you know, 400 people in and flip a switch and kill them all at once. This was all machetes. There were no guns. There were no gas chambers. There was no, you know, easy way to kill lots of people quickly. This was all at hand-to-hand combat. 1 million people, 100 days. It's quite, you know, horrific to think about. So that's what I did. I worked at the genocide, at the War Crimes Tribunal for a little over a year, and quickly realized that that's not something that I could do for the rest of my life. And that everybody who I did work with were shells of human beings. And while they were wonderful people, they ultimately, you know, this had taken everything out of them. And so I finished the case that I was working on, and then from there traveled and then came home to Philadelphia, which was home at the time. I'd gone to Temple Law, and came home and had no idea what I wanted to do. And then at that point, and still is clearly, if not in a worse way, but one of the human rights issues in the United States, in addition to race and immigration issues, was LGBTQ rights. So coming from a human rights background, and that being sort of my personality of wanting to fight for people's rights, I dove into LGBTQ rights and became Philly gay lawyer. And that was sort of the advocacy arm of what I do. And then Giampolo Law Group was the firm that I created. And yeah, and I'm in the heart of the neighborhood now and represent the LGBTQ community.
You're always about helping others. I mean, that's the bottom line. If you look at your whole career, everything you do is about helping others.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, I think both of my parents were the same way. They were both entrepreneurs. And so, you know, as a lawyer, it's a helping profession in and of itself, right? And then to be an entrepreneur as a lawyer in a small law firm, you're going to deal with humans one-on-one. And so helping people, you know, it's just a natural, I would say, outgrowth of being a small law firm and being an entrepreneur.
Angela, we're going to do something a little bit different today, because you cover a lot of different areas of law. while working with the LGBTQ community. You handle estate planning, you handle real estate law, family law, employment law, which we discussed last week, and business law. And I'd like to start off with estate planning. Why is it so important that people, whether they're a couple or not, that they sit down with you and basically plan out estate planning, plan out their future?
Plans are meant to change, right? And that's the one thing on top of death and taxes, we know that plans change. So my last meeting right before you guys, I told them I had to go, that I'm always late for this live radio show. And I always pop in during commercials, and, they never know if I'm on a plane, and I haven't emailed Steve. So I was like, I got to go, ladies, I got to go. But so we hopped off real quick, and I was actually on time-ish. But let's just take that couple's life. One of the women was married to a man previously, and they have a son, and the son has special needs. And so now the ex-husband lives in another state. He just moved to yet another state. So the special needs trust is in Arkansas and governed under Arkansas law. He now lives in Alabama. So he has all Arkansas documents, but he lives in Alabama. My clients live in Pennsylvania. She is now married to this woman who did not adopt the son, who's special needs. They want to get out of the United States because they feel like most people do, and that it's on fire. And so they want to leave. So they're currently sitting in France as we are having this Zoom meeting. They own a home in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, that they want to go to the special needs, son that they want him to live in. Special needs son has had drinking and drugs problems in the past. So they're worried that they're going to own this home in their name. They're going to live in another country, and that their special needs son who has had drugs and alcohol issues in the past, could do something, have a huge party, like slip back into addiction. And next thing you know, someone is OD'd in their home or something, and they're, culpable or responsible. And so how do you not sit down with an attorney to figure that out, right? You have an ex who has lived in multiple states. You have a special needs son. You own a home. You live in another country. There's a lot there to figure out. So this is our second meeting together, and we finally figured out the scope of work. They thought that they wanted the house to go to the son, which someone who is special needs and on government benefits is allowed to own a home in their name. But their financial advisor wants them to have a foothold in the United States. The financial advisor wants them to own something in the United States so that they can always come back if France doesn't work out. So they're going to keep the name in their home. We're going to form an LLC, and they're going to become property management company owners, right? I'm going to create a property management company for them to own. They're going to have a lease with their son. And it's going to be no different than if I owned the home and I was leasing to this guy who happened to be special needs, right? I had them contact their insurance broker to get an umbrella rider policy of $1 million and to switch over the homeowner's insurance from not homeowners, but rental. They're now landlords. And so they need to switch their homeowners, right? I had them email me the special needs trust and all the documents that the ex-husband did, and now found out that they're in Arkansas law, but he lives in Alabama. So they're now contacting him to update his documents because the special needs trust he did. And she's not a co-trustee of the special needs trust, and she should be, because you don't need two special needs trusts. The ex shouldn't create a special needs trust for the son and her as well. So they should have one special needs trust for the two of them that they both put their stuff into, or else the kid will wake up one day with two special needs trusts that both parents created, which is unnecessary from an estate planning perspective. And then there's their joint estate planning, her and her new wife. So there's a lot in the scope of work. We're forming an entity, drafting an operating agreement, drafting a lease. They're going to be property management owners. updating their homeowner's insurance to renters and getting an umbrella policy in case the kid does anything, updating the special needs trust that the ex-husband did for them to be co-trustees and to either bring it into Pennsylvania law or Alabama law where he is. So by coming to me, they're now in touch with the ex-husband, they're now in touch with their homeowner's insurance, and all of these things are being done. And they just reached out about their estate planning because they're moving to France. And now we have like a 4-step thing on their scope of work. So
wow. That is a wow.
So that's why you reached out to an estate planning attorney, because they didn't think if I had met this couple 5 years ago, she'd still be married to a man, have no idea she was moving to France, right? There's a lot. That's why it's called estate planning, ING, because plans are meant to change.
One of the other areas, Angela, you do is real estate law. How does your practice, what do you mostly do when it comes to real estate law?
Yeah. So a lot of what we just talked about, actually, as far as a lot of Philadelphia is just a booming city, whether you agree with how the gentrification is occurring or not. I mean, the 76ers is moving their stadium into downtown at 11th and Market. My office is at 12th. You have condos going up every which way you look. So there's a lot of real estate to be done in terms of development and flipping and, in my opinion, holding. So a lot of people are moving here from New York as well, because the idea of real estate investing in New York was gone about 20 years ago. So real estate investors or people with money in New York are moving and or just coming to Philly to buy real estate and head back right to New York. But so I have a lot of New York investors and developers that I help form entities. So I'm dealing with one who last week, his business partner is his cousin in Ireland, and he is a contractor here. So he has a contracting business, and his cousin is going to put in the equity. He's going to do the sweat equity. So forming an entity for the two of them and then require that the development company use his construction company to do the renovations, right? So that the cousin in Ireland with money can't ice out his cousin if they get into any sort of squabble, and not use his construction company in order to do the actual renovations to the homes. So anything from that, development, flipping, reviewing of leases for small companies. So I have a lease here, right? Who reviews the lease? Commercial leases, anything from, I don't do any landlord tenant anymore from post-COVID. It's just too difficult. The renters' rights and some things that were put into place in order to protect tenants during COVID. It just has made the area of law so difficult from a time perspective, and for what I have to charge in order to do it. Like landlords, you have to be super careful. My big advice to landlords in Philadelphia is just screen. And yeah, that would be the gist from a real estate perspective.
Do you get into foreclosures at all?
No, again, that's very litigation based. Both, landlord tenant foreclosures both require going to court. As you know, I travel a lot, so I really limit what it is that requires me to go to court, because judges aren't as nice as you are when I show up and there's a minute to spare. Or if I don't send my questions in ahead of time, judges don't like when your filings are not on time.
Yeah, but we still love you though. I guess, do you ever, when in real estate, do you ever run into discrimination?
From a landlord perspective, and again, I refer people to the Philadelphia Human Relations Commission to be able to file a grievance in that way. But especially trans folks, from a public accommodation standpoint and apartments, there's a lot of discrimination that occurs, like I said, particularly amongst trans folks and trans folks of color. So that does happen a lot. Again, that requires going to court, that requires having hearings. I have people that I trust implicitly that handle those types of matters.
I know why you don't. I know why you don't do litigation very much. You get all the complicated cases.
Right.
I mean, because I love when you share cases that you've had or you're involved with now, and every one of them seems so complicated.
And they're nuanced. I shouldn't say complicated. They're nuanced. What's simple is not always easy, and what's easy is not always simple. And these matters are ultimately simple, but they're not easy due to the complicated factors, the complications, if you will. But it should be simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah, getting back to estate planning, probate can become really expensive. What do you do for your clients to try to keep them out of the probate courts?
Absolutely. So both from an LGBTQ perspective and from a probate perspective, revocable living trusts are all that people need. So this is my sort of Zoom prop. For those that are listening, they can't see, but I'm holding a mug. And so this is, this mug is my Zoom prop for a revocable living trust. And this pen that I'm holding is the real estate, right? And so the goal in the United States is to avoid the probate process in any way, shape, or form. You hear probate, you think probate bad, probate expensive, probate long, anything probate negative, okay? So, and if you've gone through the probate process for a parent or a sibling, then you know that the probate process is to be avoided. But our biggest asset that doesn't avoid the probate process unless you do something with it is real estate. So you own this home in South Philly or in No Libs or in Fishtown, and it's a $500,000 home. Your entire estate could be, avoiding the probate process except for this $500,000 asset. So the only way to avoid probate is to retitle it in the name of the revocable living trust, to put it in your bucket, if you will. And then it avoids the probate process. From an LGBTQ perspective, pre-marriage equality, revocable living trusts are what I created or what I drafted or prepared and people signed that recreated a marriage. So a revocable living trust for my LGBTQ clients is a no-brainer because it recreates the marriage. You're one another's co-trustees and you're one another's co-beneficiaries at any given point, right? So we've now legally and financially recreated a marriage, and we've now created a bucket for you to retitle your home into, and so it avoids the probate process. So revocable living trusts are key for my clients, both from an LGBTQ marriage equality standpoint, as well as for a probate avoidance standpoint.
Angela, do you use Zoom a lot in your practice?
Zoom, yeah, absolutely. Every single meeting now, 100% of the meetings, like unless there's hospice care involved and I need to not fly literally in a plane, but like get over to them ASAP, like Uber over to them. That's happened twice in the last week, actually, where on Sunday I spoke to a couple and I had their documents executed and a mobile notary to the hospital, Fox Chase Cancer Center, Monday night. So Sunday night spoke to them, Monday night done. But otherwise, Zoom for the first couple of meetings, and then we do the final signing ceremony together.
I'm going to ask you a question. I've asked this to you before, and you always answered so beautifully. Why should I retain you as my attorney?
Because I actually care about
you. Do.
Yes, because I actually care about you, and we both, Nico and I, will become friends with you, likely.
Who's the boss?
Yeah, exactly. Him. He'll be mean to you, but he'll be nice to you at the same time, in his Chihuahua way. But yeah, we, as a firm, you're more than just a client. Like with that lesbian couple that I talked about, most estate planning attorneys wouldn't be talking about the ex-husband's estate plan with you and getting you to reach out to him and getting the documents so that I could review them for free, complimentary review of the special needs trust to make sure, to figure out what needed to be updated, telling you to call State Farm, right? And what types of insurance policies that you need. And then even creatively thinking up of, I just made them business owners overnight. And now they own a property management company. They're going to be able to deduct, percentage of their home for office space and their Wi-Fi and their cell phones. Now they're business owners now. They have deductions, right? So people come to me for one thing, but because I care and we spend the time to talk about your whole life, you'll end up getting so much more than just the documents, right, on paper that you came to me for. So much. Estate planning is a tangible thing. It makes up, your life, and you deserve an attorney that's going to sort of delve into those nooks and crannies of your life and really plan for it accordingly in the best way possible.
I got to tell you, Philadelphia and New Jersey is so lucky to have you. Angela's going to be back with us again next week at 10 o'clock next Tuesday. Angela, give everybody your phone number.
Sure. 215-645-2415. My website's giampololaw.com, and you can find my blog at phillygaylawyer.com.
We love you. We're going to go to break.
See you next
week.
week.
Next week, Angela.
Be sure to tune in every Tuesday at 10 o'clock a.m. when Angela Giampolo is the guest on Ask the Experts on 860 WWDB AM and online at WWDBAM.com.